Testing 1, 2, 3. This will be the August 21st, 2013 regular City Council meeting.
Yes, sir. Good evening. I'd like to call to order the City Council meeting, a regular meeting of the City Council of Satellite Beach, August 21st, 2013, approximately 7 p.m. Please join Councilwoman Gott for a moment of silence in the pledge.
Please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moving on to agenda item number 3, Citizen Council comments. I will first take citizens of Satellite Beach comments on non-agenda item, then the floor will be open for anybody else on non-agenda items. Floor is open.
Good evening, Council, staff members, residents. Ron Dragudis, residents of Satellite Beach. I'd like to bring something up in regards to the agenda for the Planning and Zoning Advisory Board, a meeting that was held on Monday at 7 p.m. And I had mentioned to staff prior to today that the agenda, I would perceive, would be posted on a timely basis. I understand that sometimes there are circumstances that happen. But what I don't understand is the fact that we were prompted at one point in a prior meeting to attend advisory board meetings and pay attention to what is going on. And it comes to my knowledge that they were discussing an ordinance for vacation of properties. I think citizens all should have access to a proposed ordinance at a minimum, and planning and advisory board and other board agendas so that they can prepare on a timely basis. And then when I come to find out the council had copies, got input, that's disturbing. And I hope this is corrected on a going forward basis in policies and procedures in regards to the city. Because we are a community, as I stated Monday. At least I would think that. I hope that, and I still believe that. Secondly, I attended yesterday's commission meeting, and it's no secret that I attended it with Ms. Dale Abrams. And there was a point of commenting time. And I will accept the circumstances this one time and one time alone. No citizen should be in fear of talking their position, or at the minimum, presenting their position, right, wrong, or indifferent. And perhaps something can be gained from that rather than somebody being subdued and in tears. I would like to say something else. I will defer comment, and I will approach staff in regards to the next issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you know that any further public comment? Either citizen or non-citizen at this time? Hearing none, citizens' comments closed. Move on to agenda item number 4, city council comments.
I would like to give an official Satellite Beach welcome to a dear friend of mine, Nell Fuller, who has been my friend for many years since her husband and I were stationed together. She's visiting for a couple of days, and I just want to say officially welcome to Satellite Beach. Nell, stand up so people can see what my friends look like.
Thank you. Comment?
I attended the rec board meeting last Tuesday, and I also attended the Florida League of Cities annual conference that was held last Thursday through Saturday. Had a lot of good seminars that I attended, and it's really a learning experience when you go and you interact with people from across the state, because they share a lot of the problems that that you have. They have a lot of seminars there that kind of go over different things that help you make the decisions that you make for your community. So it's really a worthwhile endeavor. Also, I just wanted to address a comment that was made by a citizen. I don't know if anybody else on council got an agenda or a P&Z ordinance, but I didn't get one. And I don't think we received anything from the city. So I don't know where that's coming from, but I didn't get it. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you.
I'll go next. I did attend the Seahawks opening day. It was a fantastic event. Special thanks to the Brevard County Sheriff, who actually flew in a helicopter during the opening and then flew out and did a flyby on the way out, so it was pretty tremendous. And also a special thanks to the Brevard County Sheriff for bringing in the two canine dogs, and they did a great presentation. It was really exciting for the kids. I did attend the CRAC meeting. I'm the liaison for that meeting. I also attended the Planning and Zoning Board meeting. And I actually received the agenda well in advance of the meeting, and I'd like to make a motion that the agendas be posted online when they're distributed to the board members. This was an ordinance. It was an important ordinance. It was not posted online, and I got phone calls over the weekend, and it wasn't posted online. By the time it was posted, people were at work and had no time to review the ordinance before the public hearing. So I did receive a package because I assume I am the liaison, but well in advance of that meeting, and I think the agendas need to be posted. So with that, I'm making a motion that they be posted when they're distributed to the board member.
When you just consensus, is that?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay.
Yes. And actually, it was a mistake that it wasn't posted. I mean, usually we just post the agenda, but we've been talking about posting the whole package.
I would like the whole package posted when it's distributed
we
to
would
the
be
board
glad to
member.
do that. I think that's a good idea.
So you want a motion, or does that suffice?
That will suffice as long as it's done on all boards. As soon as the packages are distributed, I think they can be posted online for the public. I was lucky enough, the governor was in town the week before last, and I was invited to the summit dinner. It was a great Friday evening spent with the governor and his entourage, and he talked about the state streamlining processes. So fortunate for me, I was invited with 99 other people from the community, and it was a real nice event. And I think that's it for now.
The only thing I have, Mr. Mayor, is on the September 4th council meeting. I might be a little bit late. I have been invited to participate in a DOEA fall presentation, caregiver presentation up at FSU on that morning. So it's about a 5-hour drive back. So I will go up and represent us as best as possible in my presentation, but I should be back, I'm guessing around 5 or 6, somewhere there. But I will be here, but I may be a little late.
Okay,
But
thank
that's
you.
all I have.
Thank you. I also attended the Florida League of Cities in Orlando. It was very, very informative. I'm on a environmental and water committee. I learned a lot just sitting in on the first meeting they had, and I know this will be something we work on for some time, but when we did talk about last council meeting, the adaptation, we are not the only one. I can tell you it was a very big topic in the league meeting. People are calling it a lot of different things, sustainability. Sanibel Island is doing it. So there's more people looking into it than just us. It is still in its infancy stage, but there will be, I'm sure, a lot of information available to all the communities on that.
And did they have any handouts on that?
They did not at that time, but that, I can tell you, Naples, Sanibel, West Palm Beach, there was quite a few communities there that when the topic came up, that they used different terminology for really the same thing they were doing. So I think the next meeting is in September in Jacksonville, which I will attend, and hopefully we'll get more information. But we are not the only ones. It is getting out there pretty quick, and a lot of communities are looking into it. So that's all I have. Any further council comments? There are none. Moving on to agenda item number 5.
I have nothing.
Thank you. City Manager.
I have a lot. I did want to highlight 2 events that we're having in our community in the next week or so, or I'm sorry, month. The Satellite Beach Police Department Safety Day is on September 28th from 10 to noon. This is for children ages 5 to 10, and that event will teach them bicycle safety. You can get fingerprinted, and then also your children will get tips on stranger danger. Also, the Police Athletic League is hosting their 11th annual Super Bunko on September 28th, which is an adults-only game of dice to benefit their organization. This is at the Teen Zone, and you can get tickets for that for $15 at the rec department, or you can pay at the door. So I also wanted to highlight that the fire department did receive a $8,600 grant to obtain a bariatric lift. This grant is coming from the county, Brevard County, with no match. And this will assist our residents as well as save the city on possible workers' comp claims in the future. So it's a great...
A bariatric what?
A bariatric lift.
Okay.
We are going to be closed on Monday, September 2nd, so that's going to be that's Labor Day holiday, and we will be observing that. I also wanted to highlight that the fall activity brochure from the rec department is out. It's available. We have some on the table over there. I think if you just flip through this, you can see the enormous amount of work our recreation department does throughout the season, and it's really done by 2 people right there. So it is, I think it's a testament to all of the things that we offer our community. Attached is our police department summary, and our Chief Pearson will provide a brief update on police activity, and after that I'll go into the action items.
Good evening, thank you. As we started to do earlier, quarterly, to try to give some updates on what's going on in the city and some of the things that, like I said last time, that you can't see in a stat sheet. You can see traffic stops, you can see arrests, but you really don't get to a feel for a lot of the things that these men and women do every day. I'm going to touch on several of them. It's been a busy few months. A juvenile suspect was placed at a local at-risk facility while he was released from the juvenile detention center awaiting trial for possession of a concealed weapon. And while at that facility, of course, he was searched. They took his hat off and 2 bags of marijuana fell out. He grabbed one, punched the attendee that was checking him in the face, ate the bag of marijuana, took off running, and 2 police officers finally caught up with him, but after a tussle and finally getting the person under control, put in the back of the car, guy started spitting and damaging the police car and ripping the equipment out, spitting on the face of the police officer and all that kind of stuff. So that wasn't a good day. We had another juvenile that was on the way to school and decided he wanted to go to school, so he started to beat on his father, grabbed the steering wheel, yanked it over, pulled the car off the road. They got into a little scrap there, finally worked their way to the school where he got out, started to damage the car, beating it up, then punched the windshield and shattered it, which is not easy to do. And of course had a medical clearance and had to go to the hospital for that. But that wasn't fun either. We had an unattended death of an 86-year-old male who was in his house for well over a week, and probably a week and a half had passed out on the bathroom floor while the water was running. The water was seeping out the back, the air conditioning wasn't on, and he had passed away, probably been 7 to 10 days before we were able to find him in there without any air conditioning. That was not a short event. We had a domestic violence call from the county where they said there was an ongoing domestic violence incident in the middle of the street, and they did not have a unit that was going to be available quickly, so they asked us for a response, and we got there, of course, relatively quickly, set up a perimeter, got the whole situation pretty much under control. When the sheriff's deputy and the supervisor pulled up at the same time, got out, they saw the full perimeter, everything taken care of, and everything just completely stopped and ready, waiting for them to take over. And the exact quote from the supervisor was, "I love working supervisor shift on the beach side." So they're very appreciative, and they're always very, very helpful to us. Like Councilwoman Medina was saying, anytime you call the sheriff's department for anything, they're in the community, they help us. It's a great partnership. We had a call of an elderly couple that had not been seen in a while, and it was a well-being check. Having just responded only a few days to the other gentleman who had passed away on the floor, we got to the house, and the supervisor could look in and see 2 people laying on the floor, neither one of them moving, and thought, oh boy. So made entry into the house, approached the man first, and checked to see he was alive, and he looked up and he said, we'd both fallen, and we didn't have the ability to get up, to move, to do anything. And he says, but my wife is dead. And she stopped and looked up and said, no, I just went to sleep. So that came out well. They had been on the floor for 2 days, both of them together on the floor in the house for 2 days, and they couldn't call anybody, and they couldn't get up. So we're looking into getting them some assistance. And let's see, 2 more real quick. We had 2 escort services that were operating in Satellite Beach. One has been investigated. When I say operating, meaning it was on the internet, but they were allegedly based out of Satellite Beach. Both are being investigated. One has already been removed, and the second one is an ongoing investigation. And the last thing I have, I'm not sure if I talked about this last time. It's right on the cusp of the 3-month last report. We had a church van come over to the beach side. I don't know if I mentioned that. From Orlando, they had a big church van, and they bring over groups of people to the beach. They got to the beach, they parked the big van where all these people were in it, and they went out to the beach. Somebody came up, broke into the vehicle, and it was kids. It was all kids, and took everything out of the van. And one of the kids had come back up to get something that they forgot and just saw the suspect leaving. Well, they called the police. We get there. While we're there, standing at the beach access on the highway, getting a description. Of course, this kid was not able to really give a great description. They didn't understand cars and things like that. So while she's describing it, the suspect apparently had lost his way and turned around to come back. So while they're standing in the parking lot, the juvenile says, oh, it looks like that car. Matter of fact, that's it. That's going fine. So I go, I'll be right back. So we stopped the car, found every single thing that was stolen from the van, and multiple other items of stolen property that were in the van that had been stolen, that he had been ripping off all of it down the beach side. But you don't get much easier than that when the person says, oh, by the way, that's the car right there that did that, and you catch them. So it's been a busy few months, but like I said, some of the things that we do don't show up on a stat sheet, so I really appreciate the opportunity to give you updates quarterly on some of the things that go on. Other than that, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief, very much, and thank your department for all it does. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, before we continue, can Lieutenant Varias go out there and ask those folks to tone down the noise? I'm having trouble concentrating. Maybe they can work on their silent drills.
Thank you. Pardon?
I did want to highlight also when, I think it was last meeting, we talked about how we were going to create a quarterly training for our employees and invite the public when we had the chance. We do have one scheduled for September 12th at 3:30 at our Civic Center regarding identity theft, and Sheriff Ivy will be doing that training, and we'll make that available to the public. So we'll put that on the web and put that, that notice out. I think Carrie's going to help us publicize that over at the rec department, but I think that's a great opportunity for anybody in the public as well as all of our employees to come in and get a good tips on how to avoid identity theft. We do have, I did want to update you on the actions yesterday at the County Board of Commissions meeting. They did pass the agreement that we proposed, a 3-2 vote. It seems as though Mr. Ellis is intent on filing suit against the city. So you'll see some budget changes in the adopted budget to move money into the legal services, both in the CRA and the city to deal with that. So we'll have to put some projects on hold and some other things on hold to deal with that. And, unfortunately, I think that's the strategy they have is to hurt the city. So that's what we're going to be looking forward to, and hopefully we can get it resolved pretty quickly.
And what do you mean by that?
I'm sorry.
What do you mean by that, get it resolved quickly?
If they file suit, we hope to resolve it pretty quickly.
May we comment on this at this time? I'm tired of the city getting kicked around by this guy. I don't take abuse well, and it's time for us to fight back and let this guy know we're serious. He's not going to besmirch this city, and he's not going to harm our reputation, and he needs to stop wasting tax dollars with his staff playing silly games with us and stop wasting our staff's time providing him with information that he is looking for in some kind of wild goose chase. It's time to say enough. So bring him on and let's get it over with.
Well, and we'll just wait for, them to file. That's all we can do. So, and, I just don't want to spend a bunch of money on something else and then have to come back and dip into reserves for that. I did want to also update you. The county and the school board have scheduled a workshop on impact fees, and that will be on the 27th of August, next week. I would like the city to enter into that conversation. I think this has a big impact on us, particularly with the Pelican Coast property. Impact fees for schools are by far the largest impact fees in the county. For a single-family home, it's $4,500 something, which is expensive. And at the same time, Sea Park is up for closure every year. So I think we have a need to have that conversation with them and ensure that if we do have impact fees in our county and our community, and our developers are paying for that, that we are going to keep our schools open to have concurrency, and they're not going to be charged twice when they build. So I think we do need to enter in that conversation, and I'd like us to draft a letter to do that if I can get a motion for that.
I'll make a motion that we allow the city manager to draft a letter addressing the concurrency and the impact fees for properties up in the Montecito area and the 100 acres that we have up there.
I have a motion by Councilman Montanaro. Do I have a second?
Correct.
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand the motion.
Well, the motion is to allow her to draft a letter basically supporting the city's stance on that we're not in favor of.
Well, I want to draft a letter asking to
Concerns.
participate into the workshop. So basically opening the workshop for cities.
Okay.
And we would be one of the
Can
people
we
that
do
are
that by consensus, or do we actually need a motion?
Yeah, I would think that by consensus you could get direction.
I'll
Yeah,
withdraw.
consensus.
I'll withdraw the motion.
I just want to clarify one thing, because at the last meeting, you said that Sea Park was not on the radar for closure
So
next
far.
year, correct?
So far. Mhm. We haven't gotten the 5-year capital facilities work plan yet, but again, last year, that didn't matter. That plan came out, they said there was no closures, then the election happened, and then all of a sudden, there's 3 closures on the chopping block. So I think, or 4, and So I think we need to just be always vigilant and make sure that, if we're going to have closures in the future, that they understand that impact fees aren't acceptable at that same time. I think that's pretty reasonable.
And just one other comment, there was a letter when the school closure issue came up, and so there are people on both sides of the fence. I think we all got a copy of it where some were upset Sea Park were closing, and others wanted their children moved to different schools because of the condition of Sea Park. So remember, there's always two sides of the story regarding the school closures and the facilities that their children may go to. So we need to be vigilant of that as well.
I think I can understand the condition of Sea Park. On the other hand, if Sea Park closes, there won't be enough concurrency for Pelican Coast to develop, and that developer will be on the hook for that. So I think that's a big issue that we need to keep in mind.
I think that's the issue that kept that school open. That is exactly the issue that kept that school open, and we have to be on top of it, because if we're going to do something with that property, that school needs to be open.
That's totally correct.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
While
exactly
it's
why.
not on the radar for closure, it's on the radar for closure.
We need to be proactive, I think, on all this.
Exactly.
Okay, the other action item I have is we would like to schedule a code enforcement workshop. I did suggest September 25th, however, after the publication of the agenda, I had a code enforcement member want to be there, the board member, code enforcement board member, be at the meeting. I think a code enforcement workshop would be primarily a council workshop, because you all set the policy and procedures on code enforcement, and they're kind of like the jury. But I think that a code enforcement board member would be able to give you some insight on codes that are hard to interpret and things like that, so it'd be nice if they could attend the meeting. And they requested a different date, and I'd like to suggest, if we could, the first week of October. So it would be October 1st.
Tuesday?
Yes. If everybody can make
Everybody's
that.
schedule?
No, that's fine.
7?
Okay, that'd be great. October 1st?
At 7?
Yes, at 7. Is that good?
Fine.
Okay. And just to, we'll try to put together a packet of information for you, but we would like to discuss the issues of proactive versus reactive code enforcement. Everybody kind of has a different idea of how that should be done. Accepting anonymous complaints, property maintenance codes, and then also our procedures and how we go about code enforcement, and have that discussion and let, some of the people who have been through the process or want to see more process or whatever, have a chance to comment on that and give us some input. And that's it. That's all I got.
I do have a question for you, because you and I have talked about this. I think you all are aware that 4 hours of ethics training are required this year. And so Courtney and I have talked about a workshop to get that ethics training done, not only for the elected officials, but also for some of the staff that is also required to do that training. So
I'm looking
it
into
needs
that.
to be done this year.
Yeah, I'm looking into that, so we would look at October for that. I'm trying to limit your September meetings because of the budget, and then, and you're going to have a lot of meetings with us, and I don't want to clog you up too much, but you have October, and then we also have the land use meeting that we want to have, and then also the Pelican Coast workshop, so we'll get those done hopefully by the end of the year.
I think it's state mandated. We have to get it done by the end of the year.
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
Yes.
Great. Thank you. And that's all your report?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Moving on to agenda item number 7. And agenda item number 7 is a proclamation recognizing September 19th, 2013 as It Can Wait National Day of Action. And what it's about is opposing texting while driving. So let me read an official proclamation of the City of Satellite Beach. Whereas the City of Satellite Beach holds the health and safety of its teenagers and adults as a chief concern. And whereas through itcanwait.com, Facebook, Text to Pledge, Tweet to Pledge, and events, more than 1.3 million people have committed to never text and drive. Whereas 98% of Americans, commuters, know sending a text or email while driving is not safe. And whereas 49% of commuters text while behind the wheel. And a Virginia study showed, yes, I'm not reading every single one of them. A Virginia study showed those who send text messages while driving are 23 times more likely to crash. Whereas a driver that sends a text message while driving not only jeopardizes his or her safety, but also the safeties of passengers, pedestrians, and other drivers. Now, therefore, I, Frank P. Catino, Mayor of the City of Satellite Beach, Brevard County, Florida, do hereby proclaim September 19th, 2013, I Can Wait National Day of Action. And we got this from the League of Cities, a meeting we attended, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, AT&T is the big pusher behind this particular event. So, thank you.
Very good.
An added comment on that to show what a serious problem this is and how widespread. I was up in the Northern Virginia area in the suburb of D.C., and I actually saw a bus driver texting while he was driving the bus. The bus was moving. It was moving slowly, but he was just sitting there texting.
Interesting. Thank you. Any further comment? Okay. Moving on to agenda number 8, take action on a budget amendment for a replacement of an air conditioner at Pelican Beach Clubhouse. Alan?
Good evening. Thank you. The air conditioner, there's 2 air conditioners at the clubhouse. One of them, they're approximately 8 years old, and one of them died. It was serviced quite a few times before it would finally just gave up. So we need to replace that. As we know, the clubhouse is one of our money makers, and Terry has to give money back if those air conditioners aren't working. You have a wedding in there with 100 or 75 people. It gets quite warm. So that's the gist of it.
Okay, thank you. Council comments?
I just have a question. I noticed that the air conditioning at the Public Works facility was recently replaced. Correct?
Yeah, those are the 2. Well, that was one of the older ones. Yeah.
Okay. Does Complete Air have a continuing service contract with us?
Yes.
Okay, just checking.
I'll make a motion to approve a transfer of $7,424 from the Capital Assets Fund to the Public Works Building Maintenance line item number 539.46.04 for the replacement of the air conditioner for Pelican Beach Clubhouse.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Montanaro, second by Councilwoman Gott. One thing I got to say, this is another example of why we need that capital asset plan. I mean, some of these are old, and we need to definitely plan. I know we're in that stage, so this is another example. At this time, I'll open it, if there's no further discussion from council, I'll open it up for public comment.
Roger Goodis, Satellite Beach resident. Wouldn't it be cost, or perhaps Mr. Alan Potter has done a cost-benefit analysis to go to a higher SEER air conditioner, perhaps 20 SEER, 19 SEER, to save the city electric and the efficiency for energy?
Thank you.
The units that are in there are package units, and I believe it's the highest SEER that we can get in that type unit. But that's a good point, and I'll check it out to make sure that we're doing the best we can.
Because I think too, you get the higher the SEER, the more efficient you get a rebate. So it ends up usually being a wash when you look into a more efficient unit.
Yeah, I'll definitely look into that.
The other thing we have to look at there too, and we have to be realistic about it, is, you pay more for a higher SEER unit, and those units are sitting right on the ocean. They're going to rot out in a certain time frame. And you could spend more money on a higher SEER unit, and you might have a little more efficiency, but they're still going to rot out the same way. So, I don't know if we're saving money or not in a situation like that. It's not a protected area.
So, Alan, you'll take a look at that for us. And
Absolutely.
thank you. Any further public comment?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, thank you.
I've been a Dale Abrams, Satellite Beach resident. I live on the ocean. I know the elements. I think you guys did an extended warranty on this setup, right? That could be done with a higher seer, okay? Which is much more efficient, saves you money. FPL gives you rebates. Think about it.
No, you're absolutely right, and, you know, I will look into the SEER rating of the unit that's being put in there now. The difficulty is that when you have package units, it's not like an inside air handler and an outside compressor. You have both units in the same unit.
Wait, is that the explanation of a package unit?
Yes.
Okay, so you have the condenser outside, you have the air handler inside.
No.
Are you
They're both in the
replacing-
same outside unit.
Really?
Yes.
My air handler's in my garage, and my condenser's outside.
That's not a package unit, that's a separate unit.
Okay, so why wouldn't we consider doing a separate thing?
Because when the building was redone, it wasn't built that way. It was built specifically for package units.
So where is the air handler on the property at the building?
Inside the unit. There's two units.
Inside the unit, outside?
But basically, he already said that we'd look into it, and so I think that we're at that point. We'll make sure that we do, and if we could just...
Extended warranties work, okay? I have one.
Yeah,
Doesn't
we
cost you a
had
dime
one.
to have somebody come out and repair it.
The
and
units that were
parts.
there had 10-year parts and labor
Excellent.
warranties.
Excellent.
Every unit that we've purchased from Complete Air has a 10-year parts and labor warranty through Train. The problem that we're running into now is Train has figured out that they're losing money on them, so the extended 10-year warranties are costing triple of what they were before. So we have to really look hard at which ones we put the warranties on. As Dominic said, you know, you're dealing with the elements, and the elements are not warranted. You know, you have the parts that are inside, but if the unit rusts out around the parts, it doesn't make any difference. They're not going to warranty the elements. That's.
Are you talking about the housing of the unit? Okay, there is a special paint that NASA came up with that you could put on there that will protect it from the salt that I'm aware of, because I looked into that, and unfortunately, I made the mistake of not doing it. It was going to cost me an extra $450 to do it, and I'm sorry that I didn't do it, okay?
Yeah, that's something we can look at. I mean,
But, you know, it's something definitely to explore, you know, and I don't know why you've got everything outside. I don't know why you don't have an air handler inside and then your condenser outside.
It's all about room. It's all about room.
Okay.
Thank you. Any further public comments on this agenda item? Hearing none, back to council. Any further, council?
No, just, we had to replace our unit too, and there is a package that you can purchase that will, with that coating, that really saves on the unit, so it might be something.
I'll look into that,
Yeah,
you know.
it's a Seaside package or something, so it just, it enhances the longevity of everything.
Yeah, definitely look into that.
Thank you. Any further comment from council? Hearing none, Lenore?
Councilman Keenan?
Yes.
Councilman Bott?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Farmer?
Yes.
Councilman Montanaro?
Yes.
Mayor Patino?
Yes, motion carries 5-0. Moving on to agenda item number 9, discuss, take action on disposition of vehicle number 29, a 2003 Ford Explorer.
This is the vehicle that that had died prior to us needing to purchase a new vehicle for Commander Hodge. The engine just died, and there was other issues with the vehicle, so it was not worth trying to put a new engine in it. You know, an engine would have probably cost about $5,000. At the least, it would have cost $2,500 to try to fix, and it was only worth $1,900. And putting a new engine into a vehicle that has other problems is, you know, it just didn't make any sense fiscally. So I contacted 4 folks at Salvage Vehicles. The highest price was from A&M Auto World for $700, and that's the best I could get, you know, so
Move to approve the sale of vehicle number 29 to A&M Auto World for $700.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Gott, second by Councilman Montanaro. Further discussion from council? Hearing none, open this agenda item number 9 for public comment. Hearing no public comment, bring it back to council. Any further council? Hearing none, Lenore?
Councilman Dean?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Breimer?
Yes.
Councilman Montanaro?
Yes.
Councilman Bott?
Yes.
Yes. Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to agenda item number 10, discuss take action on the city's Beachcaster publication through the use of Constant Contact. Courtney?
Thank you, Mayor. Bringing back the Beachcaster, I think, is probably one of the most frequent conversations I have with citizens when I see them out in public and things like that. And in looking at the budget and all of our needs, and looking at the past cost of the Beachcaster, the city spent $21,077 in postage and printing, and that's just the postage and printing. That's not the staff time it takes to put together the Beachcaster. And I have one, and I remember, I've been a citizen for a while, and every time I get it, I'd be out, oh, the Beachcaster, and have fun reading it. And there's a lot of information in here, and I can see why it takes so long to do it. But we don't have the staff right now to do that, and I'm very reluctant, and I don't know if y'all, I know you probably have it memorized, but I'm very reluctant to increase operating expenses for staff right now until past what we've already offered in the budget. So we're trying to do a solution to getting the word out on community news without a lot of cost. And the mayor brought up this item or this idea of using Constant Contact each month. And so I put together a sample, and this is by no means a newsletter that's going to go out to the public. I just wanted to throw something together so you could see what it would look like if we did one. And, we can change it any way you all want. You see that this is like the editing version, but you can see how you can change the background. I just tried to make it look like our Beachcaster. But I did this in about a half a day. And that's even with all the writing. So if we did the Beachcaster, we would call around to get our community news like we did in the old days, and then also have the department heads send in their articles. So it would be less time, for us to put it together for one person. But it would be rather easy. It's a very easy program to use. It didn't take very long to figure it out. And the good thing about it is it comes to somebody as an email, but you can also link it to Facebook. You can link it to your web page. And when they get the email, there's on the side, on the right side, if you scroll up, there's quick links. Can you go to the sample, like where you, yeah. So here's this is what it looked like in the email. And then if you click the quick links, it takes you directly to the fall activity brochure on the web. So those are, it kind of also teaches, or not teaches, but really shows off our webpage, because the police department has a great webpage. It's got all kinds of information in it, but a lot of people don't really know how to get to it unless you really point it out, because people don't have time to sit and go through our old webpage. But if you point out certain aspects of it, they will. So we also highlighted, you could also put pictures in it. In this case, it was a trial run, so I couldn't put a lot of pictures in it. They only limit to like 5 pictures, but when you buy it, you have a pretty unlimited use of pictures, and so you can load it up with any pictures that you want. It can actually be as big as you want. It just keeps going and going and going. If we did it monthly, I would recommend limiting it to a certain size, but it would be nice to do it monthly because you could get out the news pretty quickly. And I know this is kind of city manager geared because I wrote it, but if you get the articles from the department heads in the community, it would be, more community news, and we'd call the library and get their events and things like that. I also would, I'd like to get city manager news too, so I would like to have like a city manager corner, where I could put, some of the things that we've accomplished or any news that I think is necessary to get out to the public. I like to get out, what the myths are out there and kind of correct them. So I'd like to do, have a section on there for that. But I think it's a good solution for until we get, if we ever get to a point where we're publishing something so large like we used to. Because right now, we just don't have the staff or the funds to do that. And I think it's going to be some time before we do get the staff and the funds to do that. And this costs $195 for the year.
Oh, for you.
They charge you per the number of email addresses that you send.
Okay.
And, yeah, I think it's a great way. I do it for a couple of different companies, and it seems, there's other companies that do it. This just happens to be one. And it's real easy to do. It doesn't take a lot of time once you make the template up. It's pretty simple to do. And, we need to get the information out. And hearing people like the KPEG report said, we wanted to make sure the rec department could take, Rich online. Well, I think this is another way. This saves paper. It's a lot more efficient. I think most people can go this way. For those few that don't, I'm sure we can print a couple copies and just have them out.
And you can print those, and we could probably structure it. And now that I did this really fast, and I'm probably not going to be the one that does this all the time, but if when we put a little bit more time into it, we can make it obviously look a lot better than this, and then structure it to where it prints out well, and we can fix it that way.
You said that it's $195 a year for the cost, but then you have to pay.
No. It's the way it works. I think it's either $15 or $25 a month, and then there's categories. It's like up to 2,500 emails is $40. If it's 25 to 5,000, it's $50.
And I think we have right now, when we tried to do the Beachcaster by email in the past, I think we have like 377 emails or something like that.
Almost 400,
Yeah, so if we get up to a subscription for like, up to 1,000 or something like that, and I think that's what a basis number. It's so minimal that I could work it into the budget and nobody would know it was in there.
Beats
It's real small.
$20,000.
I think it's a great idea. I mean, I look at it as, it's a way of, technology is here. We may as well use it. There are people that are looking for the information. We may as well try and get the information out as best we can. And if this is a viable option in doing that, I'm in favor of moving in that direction.
I am, but I have one question for Jim. People, a lot of people don't like, from the public records standpoint, having their email address. Is the email address in this case
Yes.
considered
Yeah.
a public record? Okay.
They were, actually, someone came in and requested a public records request and got all of those emails last year. So,
And
they
again,
are public record.
still think it's an efficient way to do it for right now with the budget we
If
have.
people are volunteering their email address, if they want to get it,
Right.
they're giving you their email address. I think we should be upfront and tell them that it is public record, just so that they know. I mean, if they want the
Yeah, and
information, there it is.
I think the fear is that, again, like somebody would come in, a marketing company, and come in and get all these lists of emails so they can put you on a big, but honestly, every time I go shopping, I get another round of emails, and you just unsubscribe them. But there's not a lot we can do about that because it is a public record, and there's no other way around that.
I just wanted to make sure we brought that out.
Well, I'm all for it, and we tried to go this route last year, but met a lot of resistance who insisted, the people insisted that they get a hard copy. So I just wanted to make sure you were aware of that. And also, we did budget $20,000 for the Beachcaster this year, so it's always been an issue. I was kind of leading towards this, and we did send out a Beachcaster and did get the emails and try to do it this route. But again, we did meet a lot of resistance from folks who insisted that that a hard copy be delivered to everybody in the community, and so you might run into that hiccup along the way.
I think we are going to run into that. I mean, honestly, and I'm sure there's probably, I know there's one person that's going to be really mad at me right now for suggesting this because they really do want to see the printed copy. But right now, I don't think it's fiscally prudent to do that right now. I just don't.
Well, right now, you said we have about 400 emails, and you want to get it up to 1,000. That's still probably a small minority of our residents that would be receiving this. If we have money in the budget for mailing and printing, You had mentioned that there was an even bigger cost to this, and that's the staff time. This approach seems to address the staff time issue, so I would think that maybe we could work toward printing these things out and start mailing them with the money that is budgeted for the Beachcaster, and it seems to me then we'd have the best of both worlds. This is a very important tool for this city. It's the city's official way of informing our residents of what's happening, and so I don't think it's adequate to just hit a very small minority of our residents. So I really think we need, and I do like this concept. I think it's fast and easy, as you said, and somebody might help with the editorial aspect of it. And but I do think that we need to work toward getting this thing printed and mailed to the greatest extent possible.
And I would ask council to give us some leeway on working up to that, you know, just to make sure that we have if this works out that way, to print, you know, but I do think if we did something smaller, it would be less cost for mailing, because that's a bigger mailer. It's actually a big mailer. If you did a trifold with a staple, that's a much less, you know, smaller expense.
Can you get us some ideas on what those costs actually are? Because I think, you know, when you look at that document right there, the time, the paper, the postage,
very
it's
intensive.
expensive.
Yeah, it's
If we can do something that's, you know, not as extensive and, you know, have some idea of what it's going to cost, it makes it easier.
I have to
Well,
say, too,
I
with
kind of agree with
technology,
Lorraine.
I mean, you know, people, if it says Beachcaster, Satellite Beach Beachcaster, people are going to go. We're now getting it on our phones. I mean, we're mobile. I think it's a great idea, and it's a great start, and I think we need to go for it.
We're not going to have 4,000 names to start, but I can't believe that we check all the homes, people around. Like you say, we have iPads, iPhones,
Everywhere.
smartphones, computers. I think we're going that way, and I know you want to get it out to as many people. I think it's great. We need to get it out there. But I also think the future, this has got to be more, you know, financially better for us and smarter in the long run.
And
I would look at it as people that want it in hard copy should be able to call the city and say, I'd like it. I don't really want to just start mass mailing them again. I think we should mail them to the people that want them.
Well, there are going to be a lot of people that don't get the word that this thing is available, and, you know, it's our job to make it easy for these folks to get this information. That's our job. And another point that you had mentioned was the length, and when you're doing something like this, the length can actually vary from month to month depending upon how much news you have available, so that it doesn't need to be a fixed structure like this is exactly the same number of pages every time. This one doesn't need to be that way. Just to leave this to our residents to find out about this and to request either by email or by mailing, I don't think is the ultimate answer. The ultimate answer is to start this thing now by email and work toward mailing it to the rest of the folks in the city.
I would think this. I personally would like to see it kind of almost like the opposite. Right? We're going to have to collect more email addresses. How are the people going to find out about this? Well, we have 300 or whatever that number was. So maybe we mail one with the information that from now on it's going to be available on the internet. We're collecting email addresses, and it gives the people who care enough opportunity to get us those email addresses. I just think we're in a world today of digital. I just think, again, not wasting paper and wasting resources like that over and over again. I really would like to see it go down.
But we still have a portion of our population of folks who did not grow up with computers, and this would be foreign to them. And we need to keep them in mind, and we need to communicate with them.
I kind of like Frank's idea here. I think we should send it out once to everybody, and that's when we can let them know that it is available electronically. And if you want to continue to get it in a hard copy, here's what you do.
And then it gives people the option. You send it out. I mean, you're giving them the information. It's sent to all the residents, and then they can make the decision on how they want to get it. I really don't want to start sending it out to every household. I think it's expensive, and I'd rather not go that way. There's people that will get it and read it online. For the people that want it, that you're talking about, and I agree with you, they have the option of getting it.
Yeah, I think I feel like I'm having like deja vu, because we did this last year, and it did go out. Look, he's laughing over there. Like, we're all laughing. I mean, the staff has to be laughing. Look, he's turning around. We did a mailer, and we did do the same thing last year, and that's how we came back with the 400 email addresses. So it was done already. Do you want it mailed? Do you want it? We need to start somewhere, and this is a good start. And I think if it's on the web page, and we even talked about, I'll take 10 copies. I have some elderly people on my street and deliver them. Print them on, people were willing to print them and hand deliver them on their street, but we have to start somewhere, and I think this is a great start. It's better than nothing.
Mark?
The only comment I have is that and I'm just thinking logistics, that your strategy to do this monthly might be a little bit aggressive. I mean, you may be bi-monthly, quarterly, whatever you think it is, because I'm going back to the day when we really did a good quality product with this, but that was Rhonda's job pretty much from the first of the month to the end of the month. So I just, I think is just from logistics, and you can put together whatever you want, but I'm just concerned that when you get it on this monthly thing, it may be more staff intensive as far as the resource goes than you're ready to deal with, Courtney, so.
Well, and just on that subject, if you look at this is instantaneous information. When you put it on there, it goes out. The stuff that's mailed and printed, it's old information by the time it gets out there. Now, granted, there are people that don't know that information, but this is current information, and maybe we don't need to do it every month. Maybe it's 6 weeks or 7 weeks.
But if the information, if there is new information that comes up monthly, it needs to get out, then we can certainly plan to do that monthly.
Yeah.
Let me, at this time, if it's okay with council, let me open up for public comment. I'll take public comment on this agenda item. Please.
Richard Charbonneau, several addresses in Satellite Beach. Did you think about possibly selling advertising to defer the costs? Well, we were talking about $20,000, which is a lot of money. And then I'm just thinking that possibly you could defer the costs of the printing and the mail by some advertising, like Complete Air or Lighting Science Group or something like that, or Long Doggers.
Oh, yes.
Well, we talked about that.
Not a good idea.
Courtney, you want to?
Go ahead.
It is difficult to do because there's, we have, as a public sector, we would have it would probably be problematic if certain businesses were to advertise in our newsletter, and it would also be legally problematic for us to deny somebody advertising in our newsletter. So for us to do that, we would likely have to contract that out to provide the buffer, like kind of like SCAT does with, the transit and the benches, they contract all that out to Clear Channel. But I don't think this newsletter would generate the income to make it contractable. You know what I mean? It's just not profitable, I don't think, the level of
I see what you mean. The one thing I saw is the possibility that you have somebody that happens to be a vendor that deals with the city, advertising in the city's magazine. Then I can see there'd be a problem there.
Yeah. So because we're a public sector, we have to open it up to everyone. And then, obviously, as public sector, we would want to limit that, and that would be very difficult for us to do because we're the public sector.
Okay.
So it is problematic, but it is funny because I remember having this exact same conversation.
This conversation's actually come up
For
years
hours.
ago.
Years ago.
And the one comment that was made by somebody is, well, what happens if Tootsie's want to start advertising in our Beachcaster? But you see we're stuck. We can't say you can't advertise, but you can. And that's what you
But
get.
a contractor could, and they
Contractor
could.
can,
Yeah.
but we can't.
The example I'm thinking of on a little bigger scale is the stadium. They sell like billboard signs at the stadium. I don't go there very often, so I can't rattle off any of the names, but I know there's a couple of house builders and things like that have bought a pretty good sized sign at the stadium. So some way, somehow they're working it out there.
Yeah.
And I know it's not cheap.
No, I'm sure.
Just an idea.
Thank you very much. Further comment? Steve?
Don't look at me like that. Don't look at me in that tone of voice. Steve Headley, I'm a resident. This has been bantered around for quite some time, and the email addresses has been something that literally I have put out to news groups and everything, suggestions to try and, here's one way that can work. One, you make the domain for all the email addresses, SBcaster, SB Beachcaster, or whatever. In other words, you sign up for an email address through the city. You've got upgraded servers that should be able to handle that. You then tell the people that are getting it through the Beachcaster itself, a way to whitelist the Beachcaster from Constant Contact and blacklist everything else via your email program. It's not hard to do. You know, I mean, you can make a quick little video on how to do it. It's not hard to do. And that way people are not getting any type of spam, any type of whatever products in their thing, in their email. It just is the Constant Contact thing. It's the only thing that would come into their mailbox. And just as a graphic note, don't use Comic Sans, ever.
Use what?
Don't use Comic Sans ever in a design. Yeah, it's the font, the top font.
Oh.
Yeah, it's and I'm joking with you.
Okay.
It's just graphic people look at it. I mean, there's a whole page on why we hate Comic Sans.
Yeah, I'm definitely not a graphic artist.
It looks wonderful.
I can assure you.
Congratulations. It's a great job. It's a great idea. It's a great effort. It was supposed to be done last year. I applaud it. I'm not against it. Not saying a bad thing, but this is a way to try and handle the concerns of people with their email addresses. And that is the big one.
Thank you. Steve, maybe if you would also, if you could get with Courtney or Adam on it and kind of help
Be
you.
happy to.
Okay, thank you.
Further public comment? Hearing none, back to council. You just need direction?
I think, yes, if you could just provide direction, we'll go ahead and, I mean, the cost is so minimal, we can work it into this year's budget, and we'll just start moving toward, hopefully, if we could look at perhaps an October start date, so we could spend time with the formatting and things like that. And once we get that done, we can, after we get the groove down with the email, we can look to see how we can go into possibly printing. And if we do need to, we can come back and talk about the mail-outs if we want to at that time.
Just want to clarify one thing. It'll also go on our webpage?
Yes, there's a way
Okay.
to link it on the webpage as well as Facebook.
I would rather go to a webpage than have...
And I have 148 likes on my Facebook page now.
Okay, consensus?
That's fine, yeah.
I'm good with
Thank
it.
you. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 11, discuss, take action on special events. Carrie?
Jacqueline Gilcher was appointed or given 14 hours a week beginning October 1st of last year as Special Events Coordinator and Volunteer Program Coordinator. So that was one of the council goals from that was carried forward. So we're here tonight to find out, well, first of all, to tell you what we've accomplished, and second of all, to see if there are any pressing ideas or exciting thoughts that you have with regarding to upcoming special events you might have in mind. Jacqueline, you want to tell them what we've done so far?
Since October of last year, the first thing that we did was I provided council at that time, December 5th, a 45-day report, which gave specifics on exactly what I had been doing and what goals that I had seen that were probably within council's same vein. And at that time, council was, satisfied with that I was heading in the right direction. Since then, every single goal that was on that list, we are either have accomplished or is going to be accomplished by October. One of the goals that I had set was to, find an online volunteer program, which we have. It's been very successful. I'd say roughly we've had about 1,000 hours in volunteer time, either for city administrative needs or with special events. And obviously, this is a win-win for the city as well as for the volunteers, because a lot of the people that do our volunteering are high school and college kids looking for community service hours that are required. So that's been a big success for us and for them. And we've also already held 3 special events. We started out December 6th, co-sponsoring with the Ocean Reef Beach Festival, which if any of you had a chance to attend that was amazing, and it will happen again this December, so we're looking forward to that. We followed that March 16th with the Tykes Spring Olympics, which we had about 75 3.5 to 5.5-year-olds doing amazing Olympic events. That was co-sponsored with our Taekwondo instructor as well as one of our other instructors, and that was a tremendous success. The kids all ended up with goodie bags at the end, and everybody got a ribbon, and everybody was happy. It was fun. The parents and kids really seemed to enjoy that. Then the next event we had was March 23rd. We had Picnic in the Park, Movie After Dark, which was another event that I'd been hearing, people wanted to picnic again, so we combined it. We had about just under 200 people at the sports complex. Long Doggers had food. We had several school and community groups that we had come in with us, and they did bounce houses and sold candy and soda and whatever, and so they were allowed to make their money off of those things. They didn't give us anything. And that was a success for them as well. And then the Movie After Dark was a big hit. We have 2 more events coming up. Our inaugural 5K, which I've been hearing for years how people wanted a 5K right in our own town. Well, now we have one, September 21st. It's the Satellite Beach Flag Run. And it's underway. That's taken a tremendous amount of time, but it should be a really fun day. We've gotten a lot of support from different businesses, whether they've given us financial contributions or coupons for free ice cream or free movies or whatever to put in the runners' goodie bags, because it's all about the goodie bags for the runners. And then we're also, in October 19th, we have our road rally, which is a road rally / scavenger hunt. This is really geared more towards adults and or families, adult drivers and navigators. And I will tell you it will start at the Civic Center, but I won't tell you where the finish line is, because that's part of the hunt. They'll have lunch after the hunt, and we'll have some prizes for that. Looking forward to other events that I've heard over the past year or so that people are really looking for in town. One is a farmer's market, and we've been looking into that. And we hope to have something like that soon. And the other is the ever growing in popularity of the food truck. So we are looking at that. There's many of them being held around. We don't like to we try not to duplicate what's already being done in the same vein that it's already being done. In other words, we find it's not successful if we're doing the same event on the same day and whatnot. So we are looking at that. I'm always open to any suggestions from citizens. We have Recreation Department is on Facebook. I get a lot of feedback from that. And the Flag Run is also on Facebook, and I've gotten plenty of feedback on that as well. But I'm always open to new ideas, and nothing has to stay the same. I actually think events need to change up. I don't think you should do the same events year after year after year after year. You dry out your market, so we need to stay fresh. So I'm open to any ideas that you have, or YouTube watchers have, for anything they'd like to see us try to do, and I'll look into anything.
Thank you very, very much. Council?
Yeah, I'll start. Actually, every one of these items came from people that came to me in the community. So I'm just a little bit curious. The Sea Turtle Festival, really what they're envisioning is a real art show in this community. Kind of like what they do at Nance Park, something that they could look forward to, once a year, a real art show, not a surf festival with a couple artists, but a real art show. We have plenty of property at the community center where that could be hosted, or even at Pelican Park. So kind of like the Cocoa Beach has not as large as that, but something like Nance Park, where twice a year there's a real art show to attend. I know a lot of people that they purchase their Christmas gifts and other gifts like that. So that's, you said none already offered, but when it said Sea Turtle Festival, what they were envisioning was a real art show, Outdoor movie night, I know was already offered 2 times a year, but it also was you had to pay to go to the outdoor movie, correct?
No.
The
The movie in the park, the Picnic in the Park movie After Dark, you did have to pay for because we were serving lunch also, but there's also, in addition to that, we have 2 movies that are done, and those are free.
Okay, well, they were kind of looking at, like, kind of similar to Winter Park, they have a little open space where it's a regular event where you bring your beach chair and you know that it's going to happen, and they know every, whatever, second Friday, there's a movie, because more of that line, not an event here and there, but they knew, and it's a big gathering event, and then you can have the food trucks there in between the community center and the post office, where, you know, instead of going over to Melbourne, you're spending your money here in this community. So that's kind of what they were talking about that, and you said none already offered. And I know we do have a couple car shows, but I know one's offered by the Lions Club, is another one.
We had 3.
3?
This spring.
But they're always popular, and,
They are.
you know.
But that's
I mean-
all we had at the DRS. There were probably 15 around town. Not
Right.
around our town, but
So I'm
in
just
the
saying, does the
community.
city sponsor one? Because it is does the city actually sponsor one?
No, we
or is it-
have not sponsored one because there were 3 this spring in our parking lot. We just didn't.
Because there is a
feel we could
demand for it,
compete with
because, you know, every week these guys meet, and there are a lot of people in town that like to show off their cars, and it says none already offered, but it's something, if it's city-sponsored, you know, it could be a good thing. No, you said no facility to contact softball. Over the bridge, a fundraiser already offered over Piney. Is that something we sponsor?
No, that's a cancer group, does a Color the Causeway.
I mean, but there's
They do
plenty
a-
of, again, for, as a fundraiser, there's plenty of other charities you could raise money for and go over the bridge to,
True.
on our, you know, on the city. 4th of July, what, you're saying would not recommend even a parade or
You want
a
to-
4th of July
Yeah.
event? It says would not recommend?
A long time ago, we tried to do summer special events, and they did not work well. We had, well, first of all, we're so bogged down in the summer with our whole week things. It's hard to run big successful events in the summer. Staffing was an issue, and participation, it was just not well attended. We cannot do the same type of event as you find at Cocoa Village or City of Melbourne or out of here at the Manatee Stadium. We just cannot compete with that, and people didn't want to seem to do 2 things. We had a parade one year, July 4th, years and years ago.
I think years and years ago, I mean, the demographic has changed. It might be worth trying again. You know, again, why should people with children drive to Melbourne to attend a parade when they could do it right here in their
Let me
community?
ask you a question. Do you think some of the things that you've talked about are regular occurrings, like the movie Third Friday and, you know, every other art show twice a year? Do you think that y'all would be more interested in having regular things repeat, like a farmer's market on the first Friday of every month?
Yeah,
A movie
yeah.
on the third Friday?
And that's the feedback I'm
More
getting.
so, because the special events wipe us out. They are so difficult, so labor-intensive for big events like Founder's Day and the 5K. I think you must be.
Well,
doing
I
that.
think that I would like to get back to that. When we had talked about special events and it was a goal, it was really, and this is, you guys do a great job with the rec department, but really to think beyond that and to think, how can we have an art show twice a year? And it might be something that we have to outsource and pay, you know, they get a percentage of the revenue that comes in so that we can have a few of these events. I'm not saying we should have events every weekend, but it would be nice to have a nice art show here twice a year, or some of these other things, and a little bit beyond what rec does, but at least have a couple target events for the community and gatherings for the community. And then, like the holiday social, again, and toy drive, this was more like a social, a ball where people pay for tickets and get dressed up and have a real toy drive and a real social event for charity. And then I think we have none already offered. So not just drop your toys in a box, but a real social event. And that's what people in the community are talking about.
Would the goal of the social event be twofold, like social plus the importance of?
Yes, yeah.
of
So it is kind of
the
twofold.
event?
The community gathering and the event of being, you know, dressed up and going out with your might want to have probably children at a social.
I'd rather
But
do
also
Christmas- I'd rather
the
do
toy drive
Christmas
part of
than
it.
4th of July.
Hmm?
4th of July, that's just a hard.
Well, we can put that
hard
at the
one.
bottom of the list. But again, all of these items came from people in the community that have come to me and are interested in
Except for the
having
last one.
kind of these landmark events in our community instead of going to other communities to do them, so.
Because the last one, the family event for New Year's Day, that was my idea.
Oh, you did have that one. I had New Year's too, and I thought,
Yeah.
they're getting a little overboard here.
Well,
but,
the reason why is because, when you have children, we're not going to go out on New Year's Eve,
Right.
and so we're trying to celebrate New Year's Eve, and, usually there's not much to do. It's usually New Year's Eve that people go celebrate, so
Yeah,
we're
that'd be
thinking like
fun.
New Year's Day to do like some, children and family-oriented day. But, I have a lot of experience with events from a CRA perspective, and I can tell you that car shows are great. They'll always attract people. The only thing that the people that come, and a lot of people do special events to bring people outside of the community into your community, and that's what a car show does. The unfortunate thing about car shows is the people that come from outside to your community just hang out with their cars. They don't go spend money anywhere, and that's one of the downsides. But it is popular. Art shows are really difficult to put together. The only reason why I say that is because there's a standard in art, and you almost have to qualify with these art groups to get them to agree to come to your community.
Well, it could be a craft.
It could be a craft.
rather than
Craft
art,
is different,
artists,
yes. And that would be a lot easier to do. But a craft show is different. An art show, on the other hand, is another league that, people put a lot of effort into getting it that way. Like Melbourne's is, I think, the third largest in the state now.
Yeah,
Florida.
it's up there.
To get a contractor, we would have to decide what side, the goal of the event. So if not a contractor, but like a event coordinator or organization that does these, and their goal is to get as many people to go to this event and make money. So if that's our goal, then that would be a good option. If our goal is to do an event for the community, then that would not be a good option, because that's not what they're going to do. They're going to do an event to make it as bigger, the biggest event they can, so they can make money off of it. So we'd have to decide what type of event we want to do and what's the goal.
And if I could also just add to that, there has to be a budget. I have no budget. So when I do an event, my ultimate goal, besides people having fun, is to break even. Because I can't lose money, because it then comes out of,
Because if
so if you are going to plan, a larger event, whatever it is, I mean, it's definitely something to consider.
And traditionally, we've focused our events on our community, rather than bringing people from the outside to the community. So if that's the goal, that would be that's when you start asking for these event companies to come in and do it. If the goal is to do something for the community, that's something we can do. We just need to decide, do we want to do a reoccurring event like with the food trucks and the, outdoor movies, or do we want to do one larger event? Because we always have to just kind of be mindful of what we actually can accomplish. Nothing is worse than an event that's kind of good. So if you do it well, then people will come. If you do it kind of good, you're just not going to get the participation in the future.
My question through all of this has been, excuse me, what is the purpose of our special events? Are we doing this for our residents? Are we looking to draw people in a la Cocoa Beach? What is the purpose of these programs? It seems to me that the answer to that is a policy decision that the council needs to make, and then that provides guidance to the staff. I also feel that rather than having council sit here and direct specific programs, I think we need staff to tell us what you have the capability and the budget to do, and that we be guided that way. My personal feeling is that we should be having events that are for our residents, that our staff can reasonably achieve. I am not interested in competing with Cocoa Beach, with Melbourne, with any of these other cities that have these big events and that draw a lot of people in. We are not equipped to handle events like that. And I don't see us trying to put money into the budget to start doing that. Cocoa Beach and Melbourne and these other cities are not far from here, so people in our city don't have to travel very far to go to those kinds of very special, very big events. So I think that's a discussion that we need to have as to what is the overall guiding principle of our special event program.
You know, I brought this up at the Recreation Board meeting, at the last meeting, and more or less, you know, advised them that we were going to be discussing these things. And I think it might be prudent on our part just to kind of have staff bring some of these things back that they think they can do to the Recreation Board and find out what their take is on some of these things, because there's only certain, I mean, I like some of these ideas. I think they're good ideas, and I think we can probably do some things with them. I would like to have the Rec Board involved in this so that they can make some recommendations on how we go about doing it. You know, we need to make sure that staff is going to be able to handle it. I'd like to be able to provide some of these things, you know, so that we don't lose money. So I think the Rec Board probably is where we should start and get some buy-in from them, what their recommendations might be.
Jacqueline, just a question, and it's kind of following up with what Lorraine and Dominic said, but can you tell me a little bit about the outdoor marketplace, kind of what's the theme, direction, kind of idea you're going with on that?
Well, we've kind of been working with John Stone a little bit last fall and trying to follow up and, you know, visiting different markets to see what's successful and what's not. You know, we're going to have to kind of determine if we want to start and be a small, true farmer's market where you just have fruits and vegetables, or if we're going to sell purses in addition to that, and then, you know, are they handmade goods, and, you know, so there's some variables like that to work out. But what I hear from citizens is they'd like to stop home Thursday night on their way home and get a fresh cucumber, you know, and so I think my vision for that is to try to start with a small market, ideally on A1A, maybe at Pelican Beach Park, with, you know, a few vendors and see how it goes.
The reason I ask is I've been out in California a couple times in the last 2 years, and my son Eric is out there. And they've got, in his community, every other weekend, they shut down the street and do exactly what you're talking about. And you have people coming in from all over Southern California, bringing fruits and vegetables and wine and grapes and all kinds of stuff, and it's incredibly popular. And I've been to it, like I said, 2 different times and seen it filled both of those times. So what I'd like to do is get that information to you, and you can talk to the city rep there, and it works pretty well. And the vendors that are there are not just showing up and setting things up. They're actually paying for the space there. So it seems to be, from what I could figure, that it covers itself. It goes from 10 to 2, and everybody, so it's a weekend type thing. But you also see, it's got the California theme. You've got the tables outside, people having coffee and all that sort of thing. So it's a little bit more than what we could probably do, but it really pulls in the residents who come by and buy the cucumbers and the fresh bread and all that sort of thing. It's really a nice event. But I'll get you that, and that might give you somebody in another state to talk to that can give you some direction on that.
Kerry, I like reoccurring events. I think the big events takes a lot of money, time to put on. And I think one of the ideas that I heard last year, and I know Councilwoman Dean had said a lot, is what are they for? I think it's for trying to draw people in the community together more often than once or twice a year. So if you had music in the park and it was every other Saturday or something of that. I'm not saying doing what they do with downtown Melbourne, but people know the first Monday or first Friday every month.
Second Friday,
Yeah.
whatever, we know what that
You
is.
know, there's a
Friday-
street park
One of those
thing.
Fridays.
Well, I think those ongoing type smaller events that draw people, I've had a lot of people say, hey, how about music up at the beach a couple times a month? They have it at Vieira, and they go over there. So I like the smaller type events that reoccur, because I think my idea is to bring the community together. Where are we going to bring them together at? And it's in smaller events, I think.
And I don't want people to think I want a Cocoa Beach or a Melbourne art show, and that's, or the community or the people that have come to me, but a reoccurring event, and you know it's going to happen, and then you look forward to it every year, and you actually kind of plan around it to go do some of these things. Don't want to put a stress on the staff either, but if it's something you think can happen, then we need to figure out how to get it done, and there's lots of creative ways to do these things.
I think too is like with the farmer's market, usually there are people that just run those, and you just invite them to your community, and that's just, the
Hugely
challenge is just
successful all over
finding
the
one in the
country.
day, and,
Fun.
you know, and I like the shutting down the street thing, because anytime you shut down a street, it always attracts people, because they're like, ooh, you're shutting down the street. And if we do the reoccurring event, you know, events like that start to evolve over time, and just like our Founder's Day Parade, you know, it wasn't always that big, and now it's just gotten to be a large event that the community, everyone looks forward to. So I think, you know, all of those ideas we could probably put together and make, you know, you were already starting with the farmer's market and the food truck idea, and the food truck I hear a lot too, so.
It's fun too, yeah.
You know, a lot of people are looking for that. So I think, you know, I think we do have enough ideas from you, and we can maybe flesh those out and bring them to the rec board and come back with something
Open up
good.
for public.
And I think that we should not be pursuing things that are just unreasonably taxing on our staff. I mean, that really has to be kept in mind.
Anyway, at this time, I'll open up for public comment on this agenda item.
Joanne Regan, resident. I have two comments on the special events. One is that I was at the O'Galley Farmers Market, and they are so hungry for traffic that they invited us to come do a tag sale and spread out our tables because there weren't enough vendors, and we made like $300, and we were there like 5 hours. I mean, O'Galley Farmers Market, the weekend I was there, or the day that I was there, was dead. And they said that some of their vendors had pulled out and moved down to Cocoa Beach, or maybe it was Cape Canaveral. And then I was also at the Melbourne one, and it was dead. So it may be something that has become so replicated that people don't go. And the second thing is, Satellite Beach is all about our employees, and I would like our employees to be able to celebrate holidays with their families and not have to be working. Thank you.
Thank you. Further comment? Hearing none?
I have one more. You know, DeKind used to do the outdoor movie all the time, and I think, you know, that might be another way that we could increase our events, is to try to get out of the way. Our businesses trying to do that, and maybe we can try to solve that parking problem that they had and try to get that resolved. So then we're not doing it, but we're paving the way for somebody else to do it.
That's more
Thank you.
business for them.
Appreciate it. We have direction. Thank you very, very much. Moving on to agenda item 12. Before we do that, we're going to take a recess for about 10 minutes.
Thank you, sir.
Convene the council meeting August 21st, 2013. Moving on to agenda item number 12, discuss, take action on the quarterly budget report. Randy?
Yes, Andy is going to present this quarterly report. We will be doing this every quarter to update you on the budget. At the third quarter, we did projections to show you where we think we're going to be at the end of the year. So Andy's going to take you through that. We do have some replacement pages, and I hope to, beg your forgiveness, but both of us are on a fact-finding mission this year, and hopefully next year a lot of things will go a little bit smoother, but we're hoping to provide you with detailed reports every quarter, and, with the budget, a lot of budget policy changes, and we're hoping that you'll find the way we're doing this a lot easier to understand, and you'll always understand where the city is financially throughout the year. So, Andy?
Thank you, Courtney. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. As Courtney said, at her request, the Finance Department, myself and Christine Fain, who had a big part in this as well, and the entire staff in our Finance Department, has basically prepared a third quarter financial review for the council. The third quarter, the last review was your budget amendment, as you recall, your mid-year budget amendment, so now we're in the third quarter of the fiscal year. There have been several changes to what was presented originally on Friday. That would be in the CRA fund, and you can then copy those pages. Those are on 1, 9, 34, and 35. Being that that's a separate fund, it didn't have any effect on the larger issue tonight, was the general fund. But some of the projected numbers there did change, but the actual year-to-date, the quarter report is, all those numbers are correct, but the projected year-end numbers have changed on those 4 sheets. In addition, the citizen, Mr. Headley, was kind enough to let me know that underneath the Law Enforcement Trust Fund, which is also a separate fund, that there had been a car that was purchased. And the year-to-date is the correct amount on that, but the projection now will include the additional purchase of that car, which I believe is around $28,500. So I appreciate the input there. And so that projection will be added, and we can show that and get you another copy of the revision. The good news is that doesn't necessarily have any effect on the general fund as well. That money is in reserves within that fund. So, and it was just a projection. So to get started on the report, I know I'm going to keep this sort of brief, but the idea of this report is really twofold. One is to give you an update on where we're at for the third quarter. In the past, I don't know how you've been presented your quarterly updates, but I think it's important at this point in time that the city staff go ahead and make some projections out at year end, so there are no surprises when the fiscal year closes on September 30th. So one of the reasons for that as well is, there's a lot of quarterly reports have the percentages of where you're at to date based in the quarter. This quarter obviously is going to be the 75% is where you want to be within revenues, and then your expenditures, you'd like to see those under 75%. But when it comes to expenditures, it varies. Sometimes if there's as of June 30th is the cutoff date for the third quarter report. So expenses that happen in July may be for, a large payment for insurance that, was back from January to June. So, you really can't get a good feel of where you're at. You really have to look at the projections, in my opinion, at this stage in the game, in the third quarter. With that being said, I'll get started. The city charter, Courtney had the same PowerPoint presentation as your last budget amendment, but basically what this says is, she'll submit the budget, and then also the city will hear a financial update periodically as determined by the council. Next slide, please. City policy, the Finance Department reviews the fund level revenue and department level expenditure trends to September 30th of 2013, so you're actually seeing that here tonight, sort of our projections. And then the Operating Department analyzes the line item appropriations and are responsible for managing the bottom line. So your department heads get their budget and they're responsible for managing that bottom line. Next slide. The budget amendment that you passed mid-year, back in June, the City Commission, Council, forgive me, had a commission that went to council in Dundee, so I'm still all over the place. The mid-year budget amendment increased the total revenues to $11,746,296, and your original budget at the beginning of the year was $11,337,000. That's your overall. The general fund overview, we'll start with that. The city staff and the finance department spend a lot of time on your general fund because this is where the large majority of your expenses are in your day-to-day operations. Your community redevelopment agency fund is a large fund as well, so we did look at that as well. But some of the smaller funds, we projected out the best that we could, but we spent a lot of time projecting out and making sure the numbers were, hopefully right on for your third quarter report for the general fund. The report that you have before you basically shows the benchmarks, and as I said today, you should be here. This includes all the way up from October to the end of June, which you'll be at 75%. So if your revenues are 75% or above, you're okay. If they're 75% or below, you need to look at a little bit more to determine where you're going to be at year end. So that's your sort of the benchmark, and that's what the third quarter report measures everything off of. If your expenditures are above the 75%, you need to determine why, and then you need to determine where you're going to be at year end. Next slide. Apologize for the size. The font here is hard to get everything on one page. But basically, this is your general fund revenues, and this is where you're at. Like I said, with the benchmark, your revenues should be at least 75% or more. If they're not, I've gone and explained why. There are a couple explanations as to why, as of June, your revenues might not be at the 75% threshold. But you can go through real quickly. The city's collected 100% of the ad valorem based off the amended budget. So you've collected, that's a good number. As of right now, we're not receiving a lot of taxes. Those don't start coming in until the new tax year. So they really dwindled out after June. Your other taxes, you're at 62.53%. I'm just going to go through these, and then I'll explain the ones that are under. That's where we're going to focus on. Franchise and permit fee category, you're at 47.31%. You're under there, so we've looked at that. Intergovernmental revenue, you're at 69.48. Charges for services, 90.35. Fines and forfeitures, 66.16. And miscellaneous revenues, you're at 98.29%. And then other revenue sources, you're at 124%. So you're actually a little bit over budget there. So that's kind of a catch-all for all your other revenues that you may not have budgeted for. So overall, you're at 86.42% of the collected revenues at this point, which is very favorable, I think, for the city at the third quarter. And then this is just your year-end, what we anticipate the revenues being at year-end, which has to balance and has to balance to your expenses. Next slide. This is a sheet. The ad valorem tax that you saw before that we've collected 100% of is a great thing because that represents 57.39% of your total revenues in the general fund. So you really want to keep a track on that revenue source. Next slide. This is just a quick graph and basically shows the amended budget versus the year-to-date. And at this point, this is your amended budget. These numbers are fixed, and then the blue lines here, those are numbers that you want to see about 3/4 of the way up, to meet that 75% benchmark. You can see, your taxes and other. This is other than ad valorem, so your taxes are other or at the 3/4 mark. You look at this one, it's halfway, so you need to take a look at that. Franchise and permit fees, as I said before, so you can kind of come down here and see what needs to be looked at. If the blue line is halfway or under, or 75% or under, you take another look at it to see what's going on in that category. Next slide. This is our year-end projection. This is where we project out to the end of the fiscal year. We take history, basically, and we take payments that we know will come from the state and other agencies, and we project that out, what's on the books at 6/30 versus what we know is left outstanding. So we try to get a good feel for what's left out there till year end. You can see taxes and other taxes that will be exceeding the amended budget. That's a good thing. Franchise and permit fees is under the amended budget. Intergovernmental is fairly close there. Charges for services is going to be, we project to be over the amended budget. Fines and forfeitures is pretty much about dead on with the budget number. Miscellaneous revenues is over, and then other revenue sources, which being that the CRA will now contribute to the city's general fund at year end. That's why you see the other revenue sources being much more than the budget at the beginning of the year. The city manager has found a way to increase the reserves, which is a big issue for the city, and I've got a good presentation on that for everybody here in a little bit. So that's the big spike in that number. It was not budgeted in October 1 of last year. That is actually a transfer from the CRA fund to the general fund. Next slide. And then this kind of just goes through what I just said. Ad valorem revenues, they're on target. Other taxes, they're below the third quarter, but on target at year end because our local option gas tax and communication service tax, we accrue those revenues. We don't record, for instance, they're always a month behind, so we don't record June's until July, so that would not be captured in our, third quarter report. But at year end, so after October, after September ends, we still collect payments in the next fiscal year that have to be recorded in this fiscal year.
Andy?
Yes.
We're over here.
I'm sorry. Franchise and permit fees below target as a result of decrease in electricity franchise fees versus the budgeted intergovernmental below target for the third quarter, but at year end is projected on target due to the absent sales tax accruals. Charges for services is on target. Fines and forfeitures is below target, are projected, but it only represents 0.64% of the total revenues in the general fund. And then the miscellaneous revenues is on target, and other revenue sources is on target as well. So you're overall in good shape in the general fund. Revenues as of June 30th, 2013, like I said, appear to be within budget, with the exception of franchise and permit fees. And the year-end projections exceed budgeted in many categories and appear favorable for the city. So from my standpoint and our department's standpoint, we don't see any things that need to be, I think we're on target to meet our budgeted revenue projections. Same thing we've done with the expenditure section. You want to be at 75% or less, unless there's some reason why it would be more. So what we've done, there are some reasons here. If you'll notice, the city clerk's office is at 115%. It's got nothing to do with, expenditures or her spending more than her budget. At mid-year, the finance department separated that department out from support services, and the amended budget simply did not provide an accurate reflection on basically her salary, to cover her salary. But we want to start tracking it in a separate department. So you'll notice next year's budget will be more than what you'd had for the amended budget till year end. So it'll basically, the support services department, where her department was budgeted for this year, will be under by the appropriate, the same amount. So you'll see that, and you can see that in the projection. It's the budget at $661,000, and the projected to be at $518,000. That's because a large share of that is removing the city clerk's office. Support services at 67.29%. General government services is a little bit over. Police, fire is within the 75%. Building and zoning, public works is under. Recreation is a little over. We'll explain recreation, and we will explain the general government services in the next slide as well. I can just explain it now. The recreation department has added additional programs that cost the instructors more, and they've also increased the revenues by the same amount, so it's really a wash at the end of the day. So on the revenue side, you'll see the recreation has increased revenues, and therefore when you do that, you have to usually have offsetting expenses. And general government services isn't any department, so to say. That includes things such as insurances, electricity, things that are citywide expenses. The big thing that I saw was it's about $50,000 to $60,000 under what we projected, or over what we projected for our electricity fees for the citywide, for all our facilities. We had typically budgeted $50,000 more, but for this year, for whatever, we didn't know if we were going to try to conserve more energy or what, but obviously we have to have the lights on and the air conditioning running, and the budget number I could just see didn't quite look like it was budgeted enough for that line item. So that kind of threw that over a little bit. But overall, the city, this is the number you really need to look at. Overall, the city total expenditures is 71.87, so you're under the 75% overall, and that's the main thing at the end of the day. It really is. The additions to reserves, let me explain this. In your packet, you'll have 1,000% over at this point in time, the actual versus the amended. And what that does is capture the amount of revenues that you are over expenditures at this point in time. So obviously that number, as the year goes on to the end of the year, you're going to be at the $374,000, but if for whatever reason, it's June 30th, the city halted business, you would have that amount of money that you would add to reserves. But we know that we still have got 3 more months, and all the revenues are captured usually at the beginning of the fiscal year. So, but the additions to reserves is a healthy number too of $374,000 at year end. So that will go into the reserves. Next slide. Just real quick, the same thing I just mentioned. I mentioned anything. This is amended budget versus year-to-date expenses. Same thing. It should be 3/4 or less. Most all your departments are there. I've already explained the city clerk's the reason why that's a little bit higher. Nothing to do with expenses at all. It's just we didn't proportion enough from support services when we split out the departments. And then the recreation is a little bit as well, but like I said, that's because of the increased revenues. Go ahead. And then this gives you at year-end our projections. That you would hope that the red line would be a little less or right at the blue line, and that means they sort of stayed within budget. And you can see here, general government services, what we just talked about. Everybody else is pretty much under that blue line, with the exception of recreation and, as I said before, the clerk's office. So.
And fire.
Yes, there's fire. And fire is slightly over as well, due to having to cover. They've had a couple employees out on FMLA leave, and in order to meet the minimum staffing requirements, they've had some challenges there, having to bring in with the overtime employees to fill in those positions. So, but go ahead, citywide. Go ahead, next slide. So citywide, you are at 71% of your expenses. And so let's talk about reserves for a second. The additions to reserves, that's been an issue here that I've been aware of. And the additions to reserves, I just kind of want to give everybody an understanding. That is the money that is left over at year end after you've paid all your bills. That is within year period of time. That is what you have left over for that particular year. And that's what you call additions to reserves. So that money, excess revenues over expenses for the year, goes into basically the city's savings account for a rainy day or an emergency. That number, as I said before, is projected at $374,000. Next slide. The breakdown of the $374,000, $306,000 is the transfer from the CRA this year into the general fund, and then $68,000 is basically the city employees staying within their budget overall. And this is the excess in the general fund budget, and that's revenues above expenses. So the total additions to reserve is $374,000.
That doesn't mean we can spend $68,230.
Yeah. So that number, the additions to reserve, is constantly changing. If we had a storm come tomorrow, that entire $400,000 will be wiped out at year end. So. I don't know, it depends on what type of storm, but that number constantly changes depending on things that take place. If we have an AC unit, as you had tonight, that for whatever reason was paid for out of the general fund instead of the capital assets, we need to have it, that would come through that additions to reserves. But we're on track, and I think everything will work out. The CRA money, I noticed that there was some discussion on how is that number calculated. This is the payment from the CRA to the county of $180,000. That amount goes to the county. The city's payment, this is the correct schedule to calculate that amount each year that should go into reserves. And that number, as I said before, is $306,000. That is the payment from the CRA to the city, not the $180,000. So when we talk about the last time about commitments and things, we're committing 80% of this number plus 80% of what we have in our reserve currently, plus whatever we add to that in this year's budget. So that's where we get our reserves, and you'll see that in your proposed budget. But like I said, it's just a projection. That number changes. General fund expenditure assessment expenditures for the third quarter are under target at 71.87, and the projected year-end expenditures show an excess of revenues over expenditures totaling $374,000. Next slide. And then we've got our special revenue funds. Those funds have fund balances, and they balance themselves and don't really necessarily affect the general fund. Those have been copied to you in your packets as well. And then, all our special revenue funds meet budget expectations. And that includes the Community Redevelopment Agency Fund, your Law Enforcement Trust Fund, some of the other funds that usually have monies within that are accounted for separately than your general fund. So overall, go to the next slide. I think that's it. What's next? The leadership team will continue to participate in the process and continue to manage the bottom line. continue to monitor revenues and expenditures until year end, and will ensure collection of revenues and reimbursements from other agencies, and prepare for audits of fiscal year 12-13. So your next quarterly report will be the audit. So that will be the proof in the pudding, if you will. So overall, I think the city's on track with the amended budget to meet the expectations, and then hopefully also address the issue of the reserves at year end. So with that being said, I'll yield back to the city manager.
Thank you very much, Andy. Great work. Appreciate it. Very easy to understand. Council comments. Would like to start?
Well, I have a question. On page 11, at the very end, the Pilot Hunt Community, Inc., I probably forgot, but what is that? It went from 95,000 and 104 to 104 to 104. That's a
That
contribution.
agreement was structured as a percentage of their rent. So I think their rent has gone up, and so we get an additional portion of that.
Okay.
Mark?
Yeah. Andy, I just want to say, I've had an opportunity to participate in council for a long, long time, but this is one of the most concise and well put together presentations you guys have seen up here in a long, long time. It really is very easy to understand, see what direction we're going, and see how you're managing everything. So kudos, Courtney, to you and Andy for doing this. It's a nice piece of work. This really, and also it reminds me a lot of how it's done in healthcare as well as you go through the year. So it's very understandable for me, but nice job. Thank you.
Further questions to staff?
The only thing I had, and I had a note to myself, and you kind of explained it on the fire department side for the overtime, but I mean, is that something that's going to be continuing on? I mean, if they were, health issue things, are we looking at stabilizing that in that department?
We increased overtime in the proposed budget, but it was like a perfect storm in the fire department this past year. And there's an unfunded position right now, and that's being backfilled by overtime too. So anytime it's public safety is that, when you cut the positions, you start increasing the overtime. Because we do have minimum staffing levels both from a service standpoint and a safety standpoint in both police and fire. So if we don't fund those positions, they're going to backfill in overtime. And, I mean, we have the same issue in the police department. They're down 2 positions, so they backfill them with overtime.
Are we looking at that for this budget coming up as far as, knowing that may occur again next year?
We increased overtime in both police and fire. But if something like that happened again in fire, I mean, it's just, it's kind of unforeseen. And we just had, 2 FMLAs and an unfunded position. We had open positions for a period of time trying to hire them, so that's why it drove up the cost.
Thank you. Any further comment from council?
Good job.
Here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hearing none, opened up for public comment. Do I have a public comment on this agenda item? Yes, sir.
Hello, I'm Charlie Graham, Satellite Beach resident for a long time. I'm on the Satellite Beach Soccer Club board as well. We had our board meeting last night, and one of the items we've been carrying forward has been a $10,000 reserve for lights for the Satellite Beach soccer, for lights at the field. I don't see that in here specifically, and according to our president, it's been a line item for those lights. And he did believe that it was fiscal year 2013 that it was supposed to be taken care of. Additionally, at the annual Florida State Soccer League meeting, we have found out that there is grant money available, and they did not even distribute all the budgeted grant money for last year. So we would like to apply for the grant is up to $50,000. And we would like to apply for the $50,000 towards lighting of the fields at the library. Therefore, we would continue to contribute our $10,000 we have budgeted, and we've had it in our bank account for years now. And we would just look to make sure that we can get this as an action item on next month's agenda, so that we can take care of it as an agenda item to make sure that it gets onto the next year's budget. If we get approved for the FYSA grant, they might grant us $50,000, they might grant us $25,000, they might grant us nothing. Whatever that number is, I would doubt we would get nothing. But I would think somewhere between $25,000 and $50,000 will be assigned. The caveat to that is it must be spent within that fiscal year. So we cannot get the grant money and not spend it within that year. So it would have to be budgeted for this upcoming fiscal year. So I would just like to, if there's any comments from the council as far as moving forward with something like that.
Mr. Grant, have you all applied for the grant yet? Who applies for the grant? Is
The soccer club
your
does.
soccer club does?
Yes.
And have you done that yet, or?
We're also, that's what we're doing over this next month. We literally had the meeting last night and kind of brainstormed. We also would like to get lighting and science perhaps involved, see what they can perhaps name the field after them, get them for some engineering support, perhaps more efficient lighting, et cetera, et cetera. So this is kind of my coming up here now with the budget is to prep, for preparation for next month. We want to have all our ducks in a row. Yes?
Okay, no, fine. A suggestion to you is if you would set a meeting with Courtney, the finance director, and Carrie, and bring that to them so we can have it and be prepared for that.
It's because we don't have it budgeted in the proposed budget until fiscal year 17. And the reason why we didn't do that is because we're postponing we're trying to postpone as many enhancements until we get the catch-up done. Yeah, we did have an enhancement for the football field expansion, but that was the only enhancement we have in the budget for next year for proposed. So we would have to sit down and see if there's a way that we could get it done together.
I would just hate to lose that $50,000 from the state.
Right.
When we can
Again,
apply that.
I'm saying is try as hard as we can.
Yeah.
But I think, your first step to help all of us is to meet with Courtney and,
Maybe we can move things around.
Would that be 2 weeks before the next board, council meeting, or what kind of time frame would you want before the next council meeting?
We would have to meet as soon as we can, yeah, as soon as possible. 'Cause
Like in the next week or in the next 2 weeks, or?
Like tomorrow or Friday.
It's 2 weeks is the next council
Because
meeting.
we are finalizing the budget now.
Okay, maybe I'll see you in the morning.
Here's-
And the other thing to that is paving as far as I know, that's basically the only streets in Satellite Beach that if you drive your car in, you're going to end up with a coating of dust and everything else. We have about 500 people in the club right now from Satellite Beach. That's about 5% of our residents. Most of those people have parents as well. So it is a great percentage of our city right now. And when people come from afar for any tournament that we have a limited ability to host because we cannot have any games in the evening. And with all our coaches and volunteers having day jobs, once the time changes, it's really difficult to service our kids. So that might be something further down the road. I just would like to bring that up because it's embarrassing, people driving from all over in these Mercedes and all these nice cars to show up to our beautiful city, and then they leave with this literally taste in their mouth. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Please get with Courtney ASAP. Thank you. Any further public comment on the agenda item? Hearing none, bring it back to council. Council, have a motion to accept?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion by Vice Mayor Brimer, second by Councilwoman Gott. Any further discussion from council? Hearing none. Lenore?
Councilman Dean?
Yes.
Yes.
Councilman Gott?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Farmer?
Yes.
Mayor Peters?
Yes. Passes 5-0. Moving on to agenda item number 13, items next regular council meeting. Courtney?
At your next meeting, you will be seeing your second reading for your first reading for the proposed budget, or hoping to adopt it. You're also going to be, I believe, we're going to be putting the right-of-way vacation ordinance on this agenda? First reading? No? Okay,
And I
sorry.
think
Oh, okay.
planning and zoning, it
Right.
didn't go anywhere at the meeting on Monday.
Okay, gotcha. We do have an item that's not on the agenda in your packet. It seems like every time I walk in the door, I get bad news about, breaking down air conditioners or cars, but this time we're going to have good news with our health care. So that presentation will be on your agenda. It is very good news. We're very proud of the accomplishments that we made in that regard. So we'll be bringing that to you. good news on the rates and minimal impact to the employees.
Thank you.
That's it.
Okay, thank you. Any further
Yep.
items that you need, please get with Courtney and put them on before that Friday.
I just have a question. The town hall meetings, whatever happened with the town hall meetings for the council members?
I think I did the last one. Who's ever would like to do one, you're more than welcome.
I thought we had scheduled them. So we're doing away with the town hall meetings, or do we not have it? We adopted a schedule.
I'm not sure who's
Would you like us to keep track of that and
track of the schedule and
bring that back on the
bring it
4th?
up? Yes, and we'll see who's up and get them going again.
I think I probably fell in May, and it was overtaken by events.
We understand. And,
I might be up again then.
Then it
I
might
think we
be-
decided to do 2 each, so.
yeah, just if we would look at the schedule and see where it's at, and then we can get back on track.
Okay.
And any other business that needs to get to Courtney and staff, my recommendation is to get it to them with the holiday being Monday before, to get it to them in enough time, council, so they can, act and get it posted online and get the information.
Mayor, I do have one other item I have that'll be coming on the 4th, but it's, and I've looked to see if there's a way that we have brought this to council in the past, but it's basically in regard to a land use issue that we have, and we would like to get it resolved, and we're recommending to resolve it. So we're going to bring it to you for like a conceptual approval first, and then come back with an application if it's something you all want to do.
What issue?
It's a land use issue on a specific property. So that'll be in your agenda packet too, and I'll fill you in individually.
Thank you. Any further business for council? Hearing none? Pardon me?
Postpone 14.
Excuse me, yes. Item 14 are the minutes, and we're postponed until next.
Sounds good.
Okay, no further business? Meeting's adjourned.
Thank you, sir.
Very interesting.
It's pretty easy, really.
Yeah, it doesn't look too
It's
bad.
about a 2.5 hour.
Thank you.